Any technical difficulties, please let me know. My Zoom, it loves to give me unstable internet connection. So if I freeze, I apologize in advance. It's so great to see all of you here today and to have the opportunity to speak to RHA. Again, my name is Catherine Nguyen, and I work in the Equal Opportunity and Compliance Office, most often referred to as the EOC, here at UNC. Before I begin today, I would like to provide a quick content warning. In this presentation, I will be discussing sexual and interpersonal violence, as well as referencing different forms of harassment. So just want to encourage you all to take care of yourselves as needed, both during and after this presentation. And we'll talk a lot about resources in the conversation itself. So the EOC. The EOC office is the university's reporting option for experiences of harassment and discrimination based on protected status, which are all of these identities listed in the grid. So age, color, disability, gender, gender expression, gender identity, genetic information, national origin, race, religion, sex, sexual orientation, and veteran status. So that's the long spiel I give everyone at the start of all my meetings. All of those things are what we consider to be protected statuses and falls in the scope of the EOC office. So the EOC works with all members of the campus community. So students, faculty, staff, and postdocs. And we oversee two policies related to this work. So the policy on prohibited discrimination, harassment, and related misconduct, as well as the policy on prohibited sexual harassment under Title IX. These policies, in addition to the things described already, cover sexual harassment, sexual violence, and sexual exploitation as forms of sex discrimination. And the policy also covers experiences related to relationship violence, dating, domestic violence, as well as stalking, regardless of the person's protected status identity. I think our traditional understanding of stalking is that person in the bushes with the goggles, watching you, certainly that is stalking behavior. But we also consider it to be repeated unwanted communication. So it doesn't have to be in the context of a current or former romantic relationship. It could be, you and a peer in a class or something on campus. And then finally, the policy prohibits retaliation against a person who has made a report to the EOC or participated in the investigation and resolution of reported conduct. So, we certainly want everyone to be able to come to us with concerns and participate in our process without fear of retaliation. So, I've referenced harassment and discrimination a couple times now. So what does that mean exactly? Those kinds of behaviors can look like many different things. Discrimination may occur when a person or a group of people are treated differently based on their protected status identities, and that treatment interferes with their ability to access their education. So this could include failing to provide reasonable accommodations to a person with a disability, or excluding someone from a school event or program because of their identity that they hold. Harassment is a form of discrimination and is usually conduct that is repeated and ongoing. So it could be verbal, physical, or electronic behavior based on a person's protected status that, again, interferes with their ability to participate in their education. So that's a general overview of what we mean when we say harassment and discrimination. So what do we actually do? What happens when the EOC office receives a report? When someone reaches out to us either directly or through, submits information through our online reporting form, as a responsible employee or otherwise, one of the report and response coordinators, which is myself and my two colleagues, Rebecca and EW, we will send an outreach email to the person who's been identified as the reporting party or the impacted person. That outreach email contains sort of introductory information about our office, overview of what we can do, information on campus and community resources, and an invitation to meet, which at this time is happening primarily by Zoom or by phone. The reporting party can choose to engage with that email or not. They're not obligated to respond to the outreach. I think that the EOC office is often known for our investigating and adjudicating concerns under the policy, similar to how students may consider the honor court adjudicating concerns under the student instrument in the honor code. And that is something that we do. We do investigate concerns of harassment, discrimination, but that's not all that we can do for folks. I think it's important for people to know that when they connect with the EOC and talk through concerns they may be experiencing, that in and of itself does not automatically begin a formal investigation or require that any formal disciplinary action takes place. We know that there's not a one-fit-all response that works for people who've been impacted by interpersonal violence, for example. Sometimes individuals may want to simply document their experience or request supportive measures related to academics, housing, workplace, all of that. Individuals can connect with the report response coordinators, again, me and my two colleagues, to explore both informal and formal options within the EOC. And then we can meet with that person to assess their concerns and determine what next steps are available. I think certainly if both or all parties that are involved are members of our community, that gives us a little bit more options and what we're able to do for people. But even if a student comes to us with concerns of someone who's completely unrelated to UNC and their experience at UNC, but this is obviously an impactful event for them and impacting their education, where we still provide resources and support to those students as well. So it doesn't have to be a situation where both students are members of our community. Again, it can be, we're working with students right now who are living in all sorts of states and countries and all over the place. So we know that even, where they're at home, they may be experiencing some difficulty. And then here's a few examples of measures that we can offer for students. So professor notifications, that's something that both the EOC and the Gender Violence Services Coordinators, I'll touch on them a little bit in a second, that we can offer for students. That is an email that we send to the faculty member with the student included that just says, hey, this student is working with us, just letting them know that, they're experiencing some concerns outside the classroom. We want to offer some grace and flexibility there. And just to recognize that they're going through a difficult time right now. That's not a formal accommodation, but it does open the door for students to be able to have conversations with their faculty members about needs that they may have without them having to disclose, I experienced this assault or I've been experiencing discrimination from someone. Similarly, university approved absences are something that students can seek through our office or the GVSCs. Typically situations where a student may be seeking medical care or may need to go to court, things like that are examples of times where we may be offering approved absences for them. A university no contact order it is something that we can issue to members of our community who may be causing harm through repeated unwanted contact, things of that nature, or if there's an ongoing investigation, it may be appropriate to issue a no contact order. That is non-disciplinary in nature, but a really helpful tool sometimes to set expectations for behavior between people in our community. Emergency housing options are sometimes available for students, and that may be a need. And then also traffic pattern checks. That is when we are able to sort of review student schedules to help them determine if there are foreseeable intersections they may have with someone of concern on campus. So that is an example of a way that a student doesn't even have to disclose any information about any conduct they experienced. They can come to us and say, hey, I have concerns with this one person on campus. Can you tell me if I should be worried about like having a class with them or like running into them. And certainly I can't predict like when someone's going to go to lunch or coffee or library, things like that. But we can say, you know, we can't share the other student's schedule specifically, but we can sort of account for what are times where they may be in the same building or the same classroom, and then safety plan from there and figure out what are ways that we can provide some support. So those are just some of the ways that we work with students on a pretty regular basis. I always like to mention our confidential support resources as well. The Ombuds office is up there. I'm not going to provide too much detail because they have the opportunity to present in a few minutes, but we refer people to them all the time, students and employees. CAPS, which I'm sure you all are familiar with, our free counseling services that are available to all students. And then the Gender Violence Services Coordinators. We have 2 right now on campus, Holly Laverne and Kayla Zollinger. They are continuing to meet with people virtually and by phone, you know, as we're in this COVID environment, I guess, right now, and being very flexible with people. But they are a great resource. They provide confidential support to students and employees who've been impacted by things like sexual harassment and violence, dating violence and stalking. They can also, you know, like I mentioned, assist students with many of the things that I touched on in the last slide. And students will sometimes get connected to the GVSEs first, and then have Holly and Kayla accompany them through their engagement with our office. So we're more than happy to always have like dual meetings with them and a student to talk through concerns that they may have. And, you know, part of the reason that we send this outreach email with resources like the GVSEs and the Ombuds and CAPS is so that, you know, if someone reaches out, they can see here's some confidential support that they may want to seek and talk to before coming to the university. So sometimes people will get an email from me and they go, oh, actually, can you introduce me to the GVSEs first? I may be back, but I think I want to talk to them right now. And that's certainly an option that is available to people. And then as the right side of the slide shows, you know, certainly as we've discussed, you can make a report to the university through the EOC office. So that is our Title IX coordinator, Adrienne Allison, listed there. You know, you can go to her or you can go directly to the report and response coordinators to make reports. And then also have UNC Police listed. You know, we recognize that everyone has different levels of comfort engaging with reporting options like law enforcement and like the university even. But if a student does want to be connected to police, we're happy to make a direct referral for students to that space as well, because I'm sure that can be kind of intimidating to figure out like who to talk to and what to say when you call. We can connect people directly to investigators and at UNC Police. So that's a service that we offer as well. So in these last 10, 12 minutes, I've covered a lot of information. I've included the safe.unc.edu website for your reference. If you remember nothing else today, I want you to remember that website because it's a great catch-all for information about my office, about our policies, and about all the other offices that I've discussed. It's a great reference point for everything that I talk about today. And if you want to find information about more training that is available to these related to these topics, or find information about how to get involved on campus, that awareness, education, and prevention tab at the top right here will lead you there. So for example, the EOC collaborates with the Women's Center and Student Wellness to offer a training called Haven, which stands for Helping Advocates for Ending Violence Now. That is a training that's been adapted to a virtual space, so it's being offered by Zoom now. And that training provides people with the tools to support someone who has disclosed their experience of sexual assault, of interpersonal violence, or of stalking. And emphasizes the way that we can compassionately listen and respond to people and connect them to resources. I always like to touch on some of the other things that the EOC does that I think we're not always as obvious to some people. We do work a lot in the accommodation space for employees specifically. But in addition to everything else we've discussed, we assist with religious accommodation requests for students and employees, and accommodation requests for pregnant and parenting students and employees as well. So yeah, to contact the EOC office, individuals can reach out however they feel most comfortable. People can email the three of us, myself, Rebecca, and EW directly at that report and response at unc.edu email to be directly connected to us. Or people can submit information to our online reporting form and then get there at the, our main website, eoc.unc.edu. There should be a pretty big link in the middle that says report an incident. So it should be pretty easy to find that on the website. Again, when information is sent in or submitted to us, one of the report and response coordinators will reach out to provide information on resources, an overview of initial support options, and an offer to meet by phone or by Zoom to talk further. That's all I have for you today. I look forward to being able to answer some questions at the end when presentations are over. But if you have questions that you would like to ask but don't want to ask in front of people, that's totally fine too. You can feel free to send any questions to that report and response email, and we can connect there.
Thank you so much, Catherine. That was really, really wonderful. I am more than pretty sure everyone learned so much from your presentation. Thank you so much again. And again, there will be questions and answer time for everyone to ask any questions to either Catherine or Josh. But if you would like to ask in a confidential manner, you can always reach out to their respective office to their contact information, and I'll drop those on the chat very soon. Thank you so much again, Catherine. Josh, would you be able to present about University Ombuds office?
Sure, happy to do so.
Thank you.
First, thank you, Catherine. I learned a lot from the presentation as well. That was really well done, and your work is so important to mine, so I appreciated that. Thank you, Phoebe and colleagues, for inviting the Ombuds Office to come speak with you today. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Joshua Canzona. I am the Associate Ombuds at UNC Chapel Hill. And with me today also is Dawn Osborne Adams, who is the University Ombuds and our Office Director. So lucky to have her here with me, and she can help answer some questions as well, I think. You want to say hi, Dawn?
Sure, I'll say hi. Good to see everyone. Thank you for having us. And I agree, Catherine, I learned a lot as well from your presentation. So thanks for that.
Okay, so I will share my screen, and I have a short presentation about who we are and what we do in the Ombuds Office. Let me see. Let me come at this a different way. How's that? Can we see okay? Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay, first, I have a series of good questions we should ask, and I think the first good one is, what is an ombuds? Several years ago when I was a graduate student, I was involved in student government and student organizations, and as many of you know, when you do that kind of stuff, you end up talking to all these important people who run the university. And so one day, this dean, I was at Georgetown, he calls me into his office and he says, "Josh, I've heard about you." And I thought, oh, okay, that's great. And he says, "I've heard you will be the best person, the perfect person to be on this committee to help us select a university ombuds." And, I said, "Sure, of course I am. I am absolutely the best person for that job." That's the first thing I did. Second thing I did is get my phone out so I could Google what is an ombuds, because I had no idea what he was talking about. So if you now are like me, then I will answer this question. An ombuds is someone you can talk to about any Carolina-related challenge or concern. And Carolina-related is broadly interpreted. But what are we talking about? Here's some examples. So this could be something maybe related to team dynamics, the people you're working with in class or in some other kind of job. You're having perhaps difficulty communicating. You feel like you're always talking past each other. This happens. And so you need someone to go talk to just to help you clarify what you're trying to say, and someone to talk to just to see if you can think through that situation. Maybe it's a complex situation and you need some help just thinking through it and trying to untangle it. Well, the Ombuds office, that's exactly what we do there. It's a place you can go for that purpose. Now, I remember what it was like to be in college. I lived in the dorm for a while, and there were, occasionally there were roommate disagreements. Maybe you all have seen some of that. It seemed like it happened every now and again. Roommate disagreements are exactly the kind of challenge or concern we're talking about. And that's important stuff. You live with someone. If you're having a difficulty communicating or having some other kind of challenge, having someone to talk to about that can be very helpful. We could help you talk about, maybe you need to make or seek an apology, or maybe it's something related to grading or work evaluation. We can help and talk that through with those issues. Discrimination and harassment. So we just heard from EOC. Now, we don't do what EOC does, but we can help you think through a situation and maybe get you ready to go to EOC. Misunderstandings, preparing for a tough conversation. Policy questions, we don't determine policy or adjudicate policy. We're not the repository of policy expertise necessarily. But if you're looking for answers and clarity on something, we can help you find the right place to go. Or if you just need to talk, like you just need somebody to listen, we can do that as well. But that leads us to a second important question. All these things I just talked about can be very sensitive, and they can be very serious. This can, if you're an employee, it could strike at the heart of whether or not you keep your job. If you're a student and let's say it's a conflict with a professor, it can have a very serious impact on grades or your continuing studies at Carolina. And so, I think the right question to ask then is, this is super serious stuff. How can I feel safe talking with the Ombuds? How can I feel safe talking to you? And part of the answer of that is it's not just about me or Dawn or anyone individually. It's also that we adhere to a code of ethics or a standard of practice in the Ombuds office. And the university has made a commitment that allows us to adhere to that standard of practice. The university wants us to have these ethics so that you and every other member of the community can feel safe coming to speak with us. So let's talk about this. It's a 4-part code of ethics, and it's what sets our office apart. The first element is confidentiality. So if you come talk with us, we will not identify you or discuss your concerns with anyone without your permission. We will not willingly participate in any internal or external formal process. So things like a student judiciary committee or a grievance process for staff or faculty, we would not show up to that as a witness. We would not participate in that on the record process. But we could talk to you about it or help you get ready if that's the direction you choose to go into. Now, there are some exceptions. One is if someone is at imminent risk of serious harm, especially physical harm, we would have an exception to confidentiality there. Or if we are otherwise required by law to say something. But that said, many people who come to talk with us, the number one thing on their mind is, I need to talk to somebody and I need to know that you're not going to go tell a bunch of other people, that it's going to stay confidential. And universities can sometimes be places, as you may know, where there are rumors, where people talk. And so having that place you can go and feel like, what I say will be held in confidence can be critically important, because otherwise you might not feel like you have anyone you can talk to at all. Second thing is impartiality. We don't decide who is right and who is wrong. We don't have any authority to discipline anyone or reward anyone. Some of my colleagues like to say we're not advocates for any individual or institution. We don't charge up a hill for you. If we're advocates for anything, it's fairness. And In addition to that, we have no personal stake in the outcome of a situation. And once again, people who come see us, this is exactly what they want. They want kind of a distanced perspective that doesn't have a stake in it. I'm from the South. We say, we don't have a dog in the fight. And that's exactly the help you need walking through, a complex situation. The third thing is independence. Our office is structurally independent from all other parts of the university except for the office of the chancellor. We report directly to the chancellor at the highest level. We don't report anything confidential, and we're structurally independent otherwise. So we're not financially entangled with any other office or anything like that. And then finally, informal. So once again, the informality. We are not a substitute for formal procedures. So we're not a substitute for an office like EOC that might do adjudication or investigation. But we can help you get ready and help you think through, what's it going to be like if I go talk to an office like that? Or what options do I have for these more formal procedures that I could engage in if that's the best thing for my problem? We don't put the university on notice of a situation. So sometimes people come and talk to me and they say, I need the university to know something. I need something to be on the record. And the response from me or Dawn is going to be, well, we're off the record. So why don't we talk through this thing in the off the record way? And then we can think through, well, where are you going to go to get this on the record? And that helps people get ready. And so you put all this together, and talking to us means you remain in control of your situation when you walk in the door and when you leave. Now, again, remember the exceptions with the confidentiality, right? If somebody's at risk of serious harm. But other than that, you decide what to do next. This is not an office where you go and dominoes start falling that you can't control anymore. It's an office where you go where you can, I need to talk to somebody, but I also need to stay in control. I need to have some power over the situation still. Well, that's us. You can come talk to us. And so again, I'll say, a lot of people who come, they'll say right at the beginning, I have nobody else I feel like I can talk to. And so that's what separates what we do, from a lot of other offices. And that's why it's an important service, I think. So that's the code of ethics. Be happy to answer some questions about that when we get to question time. Third good question, though, is, okay, you told me you're going to do this listening and you have this code of ethics, but what else? Like, what can you do to help a visitor to your office? Number one, we listen. And sometimes that might be all you want. You just need somebody. A lot of times people will say to me, I have not felt heard. And so they just need to be able to tell their story to someone. And that's it. Maybe they'll come back at a future time and talk about what to do next. We can have a conversation about your concerns, help you clarify, the most important aspects of your story. A lot of times we talk about, what are your goals, right? Like, what would a solution look like to you in this situation? And that can help you to clarify exactly, what's important to you. And then next step, help you to clarify, identify, and evaluate what are your options, right? Like, let's put everything on the table. You're having a very difficult situation, and one option is to do nothing and just wait it out. Sometimes that's what people choose to do. Or let's say you're having a conflict with someone. What if you try talking to them in a different way? Like, is it possible the two of you could sit down and have a conversation, and you could, if you had some real clarity on what's going on, explain that to them and see what happens? So these are, is there an office you could go to? Is it so serious that you feel you should go to another office and seek help there? We can go through these options and look at the risks and the potential rewards. Gather information. So we don't investigate, but in terms of policy, if you're looking to clarify policy or a rule or something, we can help you find the right people to ask and provide referrals to the right resources. Coaching. Again, if it's, let's say you have to write an email and you're really nervous about it, it's an email to a professor or to someone you're having a conflict with, and you need somebody just to think through with you, how am I going to say this? How's this going to hit if I write these things down and try and move move us forward so we can talk again. Well, we can help you and coach you through that. Sometimes we even facilitate conversations. So if everyone agrees, we can act as sort of an impartial party within a conversation to help two or more people talk with each other. This often happens when the conflict is to a degree that people can't talk any other way. And my experience with it oftentimes is just by having an impartial person in the room, as long as everybody's agreed to it, it turns the temperature down on a conflict and can open up some new possibilities for talking to each other. Now, all that said, we also, I've talked a lot about how we serve individuals, but we serve the institution as well, in the sense that the work that we do can give us a unique vantage point on Carolina. And we see problems, difficulties, policies, outcomes. We see that at a very human level. And that can give us a special vantage point for making recommendations for institutional change when that's appropriate, or just consulting and talking with university officials about broad issues, trends, insights into the work that we do here. Okay, fourth important question. I've said all this. Well, how do you get in touch with the Ombuds office? We have a website, ombuds.unc.edu. You can go there and read also about our code of ethics and some of the work that we do. You can email us. You can call us. Starting tomorrow, if you go to our website, it'll tell you there are 3 hours a week when we have it'll be an Ombuds on standby. So you can call and talk to a person and schedule a meeting. So if if it's something very sensitive and you don't feel like leaving a voicemail or sending an email where it's in writing, you call at those hours and you can talk to us, and we'll get you scheduled that way. And I know we have question time for all of us, but I wanted you to see my cute slide with I think these dogs are really cute, and they're having like a business lunch at a people restaurant, which is double the cuteness in one picture. So all that said, happy to talk and happy to answer some questions.
Thank you so much, Josh. We also learned so much, and then it is just our greatest pleasure to learn there is actually Ombuds office at Carolina that will advocate for students and that will walk through students throughout these difficult situations. I'm just really glad to learn, and I'm more than pretty sure everyone in this room are feeling the same way. We'll begin to get questions lingering in anyone's mind. If you have any questions, feel free to chat it. You can just confidentially message me on the chat so that I can say it in a confidential manner, or you can just shout it out. And I'm putting the contact information for each office, by the way.
I just want to say that this is like very useful information. I didn't know about all these resources that we have on campus. So thank you so much for putting this together, Phoebe, and thank you all for coming and speaking to us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I especially I agree. And with the Ombuds office, I feel that I've heard of y'all and I know that you are there, but I'm curious, do you find that a lot of students say this about your office?
So Dawn's been here a bit longer than I think she might have more perspective than I do on that. I think the question is, do students say that they haven't heard about our office or they don't know everything we do?
Exactly, yes.
So most definitely. I think we're entering a phase where we have the staffing to be able to do a bit more outreach. And also we are the only office other than the chancellor's office that sees anybody on any issue. So we have no limits as to person or issue. So, and I always say he has all the power and we have none. And it's designed that way, right? Because we can listen, you can talk differently and we can listen differently because of that. But because of that, it also means our constituency is everybody. And so that's a challenge in terms of outreach, but I think we're going to step up a bit more and be ready to meet it.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to market when there's just no limits.
Exactly.
Yes.
But I would say, you know, we've been kind of in a staffing crunch for about the past year and a half before Josh arrived. And so now we're out where it was just, if somebody asked for an outreach presentation, we would give it, but there was no kind of trying to bring people in because we didn't have the resources to serve any more than what we were doing. But now Josh is here and we're out of that. And so, you know, invite us. We'll come, and we'll be showing up more places as well.
Yeah. I was going to say that, you know, part of this is if you can refer us to anyone, or, you know, it's not just about you all, but if you see other people who might benefit from coming to chat with us, absolutely, they're more than welcome. And we're happy to come do outreach presentations as well.
I will say that listening to your presentation and just hearing the plethora of opportunities that, you know, I could come or anyone could come to your office for really helped, because like I said, I've heard of the Ombuds office before, and I generally knew that y'all were a confidential space, but knowing that I could just come for anything and everything is really reassuring. And I'm sure that a lot of students would feel the same way.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Erin. And I definitely agree with all you said. This is just a friendly reminder for all the guest speakers or anyone in this room that always feel free to send any flyers or any information blurbs that your office might want to share with the students regarding anything, because I believe, and everyone in this room believe, more than just like students will love this resources and then to use and utilize throughout their careers at Carolina. So feel free to send it to me or the RHA general Gmail so that we can refer students and also publicize it for more populations to get exposed.
I just have a curious question for both of your offices. Have you seen a change in students coming to you through COVID? Do you feel that the COVID pandemic and kind of moving off campus and onto campus and just having that confusion has like increased or decreased students' abilities or desire to come and speak with y'all?
I'll speak from the EOC perspective, and I think this is kind of, it feels like we're all kind of caught in this space where I can't really conceptualize time and how time's passing and how semesters are changing. I know for us, especially like spring last year, just morphed into summer, morphed into fall, and it's like there wasn't a break until winter. That's what it felt like anyway. I don't know if that's accurately reflecting how much work we were doing, but I think just by nature of the shift and the way that we were working with people, it felt just like a, again, it was like hard to distinguish where we were at in the year. I would say kind of to the point that I spoke to earlier, that right now, you know, we have more than usual students who are not living in Chapel Hill or not living on or near campus. I think sometimes that changes the dynamic of the kind of reports that we're receiving. So I don't know that our numbers have increased or decreased, but I think just by nature of the lives that students are living and under what circumstances, that changes the way that we receive concerns. And I think also anytime that there's a lot of like discussion around like this past, you know, summer into fall with the Black Lives Matter movement, like that creates a lot of conversation and discourse online and could lead to reports related to, you know, concerns of comments that deal with things like race. And so I think anytime there's like something in the news, that will sometimes prompt ways that people interact with the subject matter that we work with. But I think overall we've just been still chugging through on Zoom with folks.
I think here again that Dawn's perspective on the last year or so would be helpful.
So I would say that percentage-wise, in terms of the percentage of our caseload, if you will, that students make up, it's probably about the same. I usually like to distinguish between undergraduate students and graduate students. I think that's especially meaningful for our office because undergraduate students, there are so many doors they can walk through. They tend to be very well resourced in terms of helping offices. And then there are those things that don't fit anywhere else or about which they need to have a confidential conversation that come to our office. And then graduate students, a little bit different. They have resources as well, but their needs to have confidential conversations are different just because of the relationships that they have on campus and whatnot. So I differentiate between those two things. I would say for everyone across the board, the accessibility of being able to jump on Zoom or by phone with a service that previously had been, you really need to come in person, has sent our cases generally higher. They've been higher just because now I don't have to walk over to Franklin Street to go see the ombuds. I can, it's more accessible to me. So I think we see more people overall just because of that. But it's been amazing to me that the nature, what is the saying? Like wherever you go, there you are. It's like the nature of the issues and the problems are largely still the same, right? Human nature is still in the mix. And so they may be coming to us a different way. They have COVID in the background, but a lot of the underlying issues still remain the same.
Yeah.
That's more than what you asked, but.
And I've heard you say before, Dawn, that oftentimes, and this has happened to me just this week, that COVID is often in the background or always in the background of every student or individual we speak with, that it's part of the context and part of the conversation we sometimes have is drawing out how it has impacted the difficulties with communicating or other aspects of the situation.
Thank you so much for the great question, Erin, and yes, providing the overview of how COVID-19 affected different functioning. But at the same time, it is really relieving to hear that students have more than now a little bit easier access to both the offices in a virtual manner, despite the pandemics. We really appreciate that again. If anyone does anyone have any other questions?
I actually have a question for you all. Knowing that you're, involved in housing, I think one of the things that we've considered is we love like Dawn spoke to, the access that comes with Zoom meetings. And a concern I think that's been kind of in the back of our mind is that when students are back on campus, and even now when people are on campus but still largely working in a virtual space, the privacy concerns that may come with meeting with people by Zoom. But is it, as I'm saying that, I'm also thinking we're probably in a situation where most people are living in singles. Is that the case? Okay, so their students may still have access to like private spaces without a roommate, more so than like I'm thinking in my mind with how I typically conceptualize student housing. Is that right? Okay, that's good to hear.
That is true of right now. However, the plan moving forward is, that in the fall, things will kind of go back to be more traditional.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much again. If anyone has a question, feel free to ask, but if you do not, at the moment, it is totally fine. Feel free to ask further questions and send them to me or directly reach out to each office. Catherine, Josh, thank you so much again for the wonderful presentation, and we learned so much. And then this meeting will be recorded and then shared with the RHA so that people can refer back to it later and then potentially learn from it even though they missed the meeting. Thank you so much for visiting us again. And then I hope you all have wonderful afternoon. And then next RHA Research Virtual Hub will be Office of Undergraduate Research. But thank you so much again. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to anyone who wonderfully represented their office here. Yeah, thank you so much again, everyone.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Take care.